A Design for Life, Motorcycle Emptiness, You Stole the Sun from My Heart. If you tolerate this, your children will be next. A reminder there of some of the glorious hits of the Manic Street Preachers. The punk and glam influenced Welsh rock icons first roared into view in the early 90s, and since then they've had myriad hits, won loads of NME and Brit Awards, and sold over 10 million albums and counting. Their latest offering, The Ultra Vivid Lament, is their 14th studio album. It's out today, and it revels in the wonder of disco, protest music, Scottish post-punk and a band called ABBA. I caught up with the band's James Dean Bradfield earlier, and I mentioned to him that although we'd spent previous interviews chatting about Dylan Thomas or Eve Klein or Emily Pankhurst, this time I wanted to hear all about the new album's biggest influenced, who is known only as Margaret.
Oh God, yes, Margaret. She is the finest lady over 100 I've ever met. Margaret is a piano. She's 103 years old, I think, and she's from Leipzig, formerly East Germany, but now reunified Germany, obviously. And basically, my wife was is friends with a lady in Llandaff in Cardiff, and she moved to a care home 2 years ago because she is 105, and she bequeathed her piano to us. Such a beautiful gesture. And my daughter was just starting to learn piano. I like, trying to play the piano at that point. By the time that the piano came to us, lockdown happened, and it felt like this very, very kind of prescient moment of serendipity. It was very strange. And I thought, and of course, the amateur 70s film director, the auteur in my head thought, wow, this has happened for a reason. Because I over romanticized the moment, perhaps, and so I thought, right, I've got to try and write on this piano, and I did. I wrote most of the record on the piano. I mean, I must say that 2 of the songs have been written on piano already, but this piano come into my family it right at the start of lockdown, convinced me to go that way, basically. And it's a lovely piece of furniture. We respect it completely. It sings beautifully, even when it's out of tune. I've got to try and learn that trick, how to sound good even when you're out of tune.
So much inspiration and lessons to be learned from Margaret. I'm wondering about the impact of writing on a new instrument, James, but also in an instrument that in many ways you were maybe still getting to grips with and learning about, and what impact that had on the feel and the form of the songs that you then wrote.
I think there's 3 ways of looking at it. I've always written on guitar, musically. Nick and Richey used to give me the lyrics, and I'd go straight to the guitar. And when you're playing the guitar, it is, for me, the way I play it and my kind of, the music I liked when I was young, whether it be skids, big country, get my Scottish stuff in there straight away, obviously. Jesus Mary Chain, whether it be kind of like Guns N' Roses. The way I play guitar is quite aggressive, and it takes up a lot of space. So that does something. It pushes the vocal into a certain space, if you know what I mean. So when I came to write on the piano, it just leaves more space, because you're not just pounding away on the piano. Unless you're Rachmaninoff, you're not just pounding away on the piano all the time. And it leaves more space for the vocal. It's more empathetic to where the vocal is going to sit. And suddenly the vocal starts getting pushed right to the front, perhaps where it should be when the lyrics are so full and finished and engaged and empathetic. Perhaps that was the part of serendipity that I was hoping for, because these set of words from Nicky Wire, just one of the best sets he's ever given me. So the piano just gave the lyrics some chance to shine. And the other factor is when you're learning the piano and writing on it is that I started thinking that I was finding new chords, whereas in reality, they were just the same old chords I've been playing on the guitar since I was 15, but the piano would breathe new life into G major, E minor, C. I was under the misconception I was playing these beautiful new formations of old chords, but they were just the same old chords. They just sounded better.
Different approach. It's interesting you touching on Nicky Wire's lyrics, because I do feel, and I wonder if that again is in some way rooted in this piano, in this new instrument, in this new story, because there is a real economy, they're really concise, and even the number of tracks on the album, James, 11 tracks, everything feels almost very pared back, but so important and vital to the sound and the feel of the record.
I hope so, and I think so. I think when I was reading the lyrics, I think Nick had found a way of not looking to his left or to his right. He was just finding the important things that he could touch, that he could empathise with, and he was just finding other people and other totemic kind of bits of culture that could fulfil you know, the promise in his thinking or inform him. All those things. I think he managed to ignore the digital hiss of hysteria. He managed to kind of ignore the sound of catastrophe and apocalypse, and managed to be really focused. And that's why I like the set of lyrics. I think it gives a sense of focus to trying to find an answer and realizing that the answers are very close to home. The answers are very simple. The answers remain in stillness, of finding something in boredom. Scarcity of choice was one of the biggest riches we had as a generation. When I was young in the valleys of Wales, you know, and I'm not saying this in an old Monty Python kind of way. I'm just saying this was a reality for us. You know, I was growing up in the valleys of Wales. It didn't seem like I had much, but I had everything. I really did. You know, I had a chance to be bored, which was massive because so many good things came out of boredom. Learning guitar, coming up with mad little bits of philosophy, which we used in the band, finding a record in all the way at the back of the Y section in a record fair, you know, finding a long coat, you know, with a record receipt in its pocket, and then going and buying that record. You know, so many things came out of boredom when I was young because I didn't have distractions. And I think that's what Nick found in these lyrics. He found that there were simpler choices to be had.
Yeah. It's interesting you mention the word stillness, because there is a space and there is a sense of reflection as well as reaction, but stillness. And even the first song on the album, Still Snowing in Sapporo, which that word still resonates. And it also just looks back on your time as a band, and some things are frozen in time and other things just have to keep moving.
Yeah, it is. And it's very strange that kind of Nick chose a moment where he felt particularly strong and reinvigorated, because at that point we had felt like failures. But I remember we kind of turned a corner when we were in Japan, and we thought, well, perhaps we can still achieve something. So that was a moment where we were reinvigorated and we redrew our battle lines. And he chose that moment to reflect upon, to try and be in touch with now, to try and reinform him now. But it's really strange. I remember him asking me, he said, well, he said, you know, let's play the word game. What's the first things you think of when you think of Sapporo? And I said, potatoes and beer. Because we walked into the hotel in Sapporo the first time we landed there, and they like they have in lovely hotels, they have like little displays, pyramids of apples or oranges or something.
Oh yeah.
Well, they have displays of potatoes because they have a famous potato called the Sapporo Gold. They're very proud of their potatoes. So I remember just trying the potatoes when I was there, and they were amazing, by the way. And Sapporo beer is amazing. I went Sapporo beer. I remember the disappointing look in his face. He was like, okay. And then he gave me this lyric. A week later. So it shows the polarity in our thinking, perhaps.
It was 1993. It was some time ago. Different memories, different times.
I know.
Now, the first two singles from the album that we've heard, James Dean Bradfield, Orwellian and The Secret He Had Missed. I read that they were written early on in the sort of lifespan of the album. Is that right?
Yeah, Orwellian and Secret He Had Missed were the two songs that we wrote before lockdown. Secret He Had Missed was written just as we came back from Japan, when we were playing. We played in Japan in October 2019, at the same time as the Rugby World Cup. It was just an accident, of course. And that was the last gigs we played up until last week. So it's nearly been 2 years, nearly. And when we came back and we did a demo of The Secret He Had Missed. And then in January, we wrote Orwellian, and they were both kind of written on the piano. And then everything obviously subsequently happened, you know, this weird era of history, or it feels like post-prehistory somehow, I don't know. All the songs are written after that, but they were the two songs that got this album going. Okay,
and the ABBA reference, the disco reference, I love. Always delighted to hear that in anyone's songs. But we should say, I think, that the Manics have been toying with, or in love with, disco music, I would argue, for decades, James. The kind of glitter, the glamour, the neon loneliness, and even Miss Europa, Disco Dancer. That music has always had a huge power and a real potential for activism as well, hasn't it?
Well, thank you very much. There's not any other journalists that have referenced those songs, so thank you very much. And the glitter and everything. No, absolutely. If you don't mind me saying, you know, I did love the way that bands like, you know, there were a lot of Scottish bands like Simple Minds, even early Fire Engines, Win, even Associates for me, you know, that used to use that 16th beat. And really, you know, Scotland has a fine tradition of just that pop-eyed white soul, blue-eyed white soul kind of thing, of taking music from across the pond and just trying to do something different with it, something a bit more fused into tension. And yeah, we've always thought that it's been there, definitely, especially what Simple Minds did on Empires and Dance, you know, and and so kind of it's that potential to actually chain it to a different lyrical narrative has always been there for us, definitely. Because I love the way that bits of hope and different colours just fall off the beat in that kind of music, and we've always tried to use it.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about a song like Don't Let the Night Divide Us as well, and the sentiment, the feel beyond that, the fact that, you know, we do have to celebrate, even in lockdown, maybe it's just in our imaginations, the idea of unity on the dance floor, there being no social, sexual, racial, cultural barriers, whatever. That type of music and what it says musically as much as lyrically is vital to what we do.
I think so, because I think we're living in the age of on the outskirts of town, there are lots of small, disparate tents where people that should be agreeing with each other are all busy disagreeing with each other. It's the second time I'm referencing Monty Python in an interview, but you know the famous. Are you part of the Judean People's Front? And he goes, F off, I'm part of the People's Front of Judea, kind of thing. You know, those essential little differences now are what divide us, and they shouldn't. Whether it be post-war politics or whether it be politics in the 90s, you know, achievements were only within view when we managed to set aside small disagreements and focus on bigger things. And, you know, kind of the political landscape in Scotland is remarkably different to anywhere else in Britain. So it shows how far Scottish politics come, regardless of how you think. It is a different landscape. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you only find achievement when some people agree to compromise. And we've got to find more to agree upon than disagree upon. Otherwise, we'll get nowhere, I think. Yeah.
I think the last time we spoke, James, it was around about the release of Resistance is Futile, a few years ago now. I'm thinking just very basically about those titles. So Resistance is Futile last time, and now we have the Ultra Vivid Lament. And I love the layers in the new album and in that title, because it is reflective, it is reactive, it does convey that neon glow, but there's a real melancholy and a real sense of yearning as well, isn't there? That word lament is loaded.
It is, yeah. I mean, I was having this feeling in lockdown because I live in Cardiff, so I have really easy access to the sea and beaches and mountains and the Brecons and West Wales, etc. You know, I had these moments where it felt like the Truman Show, where I was stood on a beach, but I couldn't quite touch the horizon. I couldn't go to the horizon. I couldn't travel outside of that little square mile, and I had to be back in the house by a certain time. At certain points, it felt as if everything was in touching distance, but you couldn't really be in it. You couldn't be in the mountains. You couldn't be in the sea. You couldn't go to the horizon. And I think that's why it's called the Ultra Vivid Lament, because you're amidst this little snow globe of melodrama that definitely had a border to it, that definitely had a restriction to it. And you could see things outside, you could see things within reach that you could touch that were beautiful, but you couldn't go beyond a certain border. Nicky, the lyricist, had to go into himself, he had to just try and be in the present and just try and find the simplicity of choices that would work for us. And of course, we came up with the same answers, whether it be music or poetry or family, or whether it just be just nature in its simplest form, or just the empathy of just people that you've always known. You know, you had to try and cut out the white noise of digital hysteria and catastrophe and apocalyptia, you know, and I think that's where he found the empathy, that to try and ignore all that chatter.
Absolutely. And you're taking it to the dance floor, you're taking it to venues, you're coming to Scotland. We cannot wait. James Dean Bradfield, thank you. It's really lovely to chat to you. We'll see you soon, hopefully, up here. Come anytime.
I'll always come to the land of Mackie's Crisps, Cullen Skink and Ron Butlin any day, definitely.
Thank you.
See you, bye-bye.
Oh, there we go. The Manic Street Preachers frontman James Dean Bradfield talking to me earlier. And here he is on a track from the new album out today. This is with Julia Cummings and Duet. The secrets he had missed.